Hello and welcome in this tutorial for the solar energy project finance financial model. On the first tab here, cover, you can see the color coding. So you should, you can understand how to treat the different colors that you will see, the different cells that you will see across the model. In the summary tab, you can see basically an overall dashboard of the results of the model, together with some charts here, debt repayment and debt, EBITDA and leverage. You can see the financing and capital structure metrics like equity contribution, debt contribution, dividends distribution, equity hurdle rate, IRR, project hurdle rate and IRR, and so on. You can see the summary results for profit and loss. So revenue, OPEX, EBITDA, and EBITDA margin for financing and CAPEX, like debt proceeds, equity proceeds, CAPEX spending, debt principal payment, and so on, dividend payment, debt interest payment, and then credit metrics like debt balance, debt over EBITDA, and annual DSCR. Then next tab is charts. So you can find here some charts on revenue and OPEX and EBITDA margin, debt repayment, equity investment and dividend repayment, debt and EBITDA, and debt to EBITDA ratio, and then the load factor distribution by month. Also, very important here, you can see the generation scenario. You can select across three different scenarios, P50, 75, or 99. And of course, if you switch it, then it loads a little bit and then all the numbers update. Then in the inputs tab is actually where you can fine tune the model and tailor-made it to your business or project. We can see, okay, here the timing, operation length, construction length, and model start date, and so on. Then installed capacity in megawatts, the tariff, US dollars per megawatt hour, capex per megawatt, capital structure metrics like initial finding of cash account as a percentage of capex, and so on, debt, equity, debt tenor, interest rate, OPEX, depreciation and tax, returns and dividend, project hurdle rate, equity rate, and so on. So we can select everything here. And then here the generation calculation. So we can find here a sensitivity analysis based, the peak load factor for each scenario across months and the different scenarios that we have identified here. And here is something that we will use as an input, assuming the load factor basically. Then in the next tab, CapEx and financing, we can see here some inputs regarding CapEx and financing and all the evolution of the CapEx. So we can see, construction and financing. You can select three different methods to model the CapEx spending distribution, either upfront, and so everything upfront, either even, so evenly spread across months, or S-curve, so starting low, increasing, and then decreasing. We can see debt and equity, total disbursement, total cash needed, and then cash flow metrics, cash flow after funding before tax, cash flow available for debt service, cash flow available to equity, debt calculation together with the dividend calculation, and finally tax and depreciation. In the operations tab, we can see generation revenues and operating expenses. So how much we are generating over the period by month, the revenue over the period, the OPEX over the period, and then we sum the two and we get the EBITDA and the EBITDA margin. Next tab is returns, where we can find the equity returns and the project returns. We will have the IRR and NPV to both equity and project. So this is a sort of summary tab for the returns, and we can see it by month. And then of course we can find the levelized cost of energy and levelized power price, again by month and then overall. In the analyzed data tab, we can find the profit and loss statement, so revenue, EBITDA, EBIT, and net income, together with the margins, of course. Then debt balance and repayment, so how much we are paying and how much debt we are issuing, and then the cash flow statement with operating cash flow, investing cash flow, and financing cash flow. And then scrolling down, we can also find the balance sheet and some financial um, ratios, like cash flow value to the service, coverage ratio, and so on. And then this is data for charts that we've already covered here. Then and then the checks tabs is just checking whether there is any error in the model. In this case, there are none.